Jean Miélot, also Jehan, was an author, translator, manuscript illuminator, scribe and priest, who served as secretary to Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy from 1449 to Philip's death in 1467, and then to his son Charles the Bold. He also served as chaplain to Louis of Luxembourg, Count of St.Pol from 1468. After Philip's death, he was mainly employed in the production of deluxe illuminated manuscripts for Philip's library. He translated many works, both religious and secular, from Latin or Italian into French, as well as writing and compiling books himself, and composing verse. Between his own writings and his translations he produced some 22 works whilst working for Philip, which were widely disseminated, many being given printed editions in the years after his death, and influenced the development of French prose style. Career. Little is known of his early career. He was born at Guischard, between Abbeville and Hesdin, in what is now the Somme department but was then in Picardy, and from 1435 part of the Duchy of Burgundy. He was recruited by the Duke after he translated and adapted the Speculum Humani Salvationis into French in 1448, and as well as his court salary he was made a canon of St. Peter's in Lille in 1453, serving until his death in 1472, when he was buried in the church. He was probably not usually resident. As a priest and as an employee of the court he would have been exempt from guild regulations, which was probably an advantage to his career. He seems to have had lodgings in the palace, which are perhaps realistically shown in a miniature in Brussels, and also to have run the workshop of scribes in Lille. After the Feast of the Pheasant in 1454, an enthusiasm in the court to revive the Crusades led to commissions to translate travel books about the Middle East, because of the particular Burgundian fashion for presentation miniatures, where the author is shown presenting the book to the Duke or another patron. We have an unusually large number of portraits of Miélot for a non-royal person of the period, which mostly show consistent facial features. He would have been very well known to the artists, and may well have had influence in allocating commissions to them. These are in books he wrote in both senses of the word, as he usually scribed Philip's copy himself. Philip the Good was the leading bibliophile of northern Europe, and employed a number of scribes, copyists and artists, with Miélot holding a leading position among the former groups. His translations were first produced in draft form, called a minute, with sketches of the images and illuminated letters. If this was approved by the Duke after being examined and read aloud at court, then the final deluxe manuscript for the Duke's library would be produced on fine vellum, and with the sketches worked up by specialist artists. Miélot's minute for his Le Miroir de Illum and Salvation survives in the Bibliothèque Royale Albert I in Brussels, which includes two self-portraits of him richly dressed as a layman. The presentation portrait to La Controverse de Noblesse, a year later, shows him with a clerical tonsure. His illustrations are well composed but not executed up to the standard of manuscripts for the court. His text, on the other hand, is usually in a very fine Burgundian bastard or black-letter script, and paleographers can recognize his hand. Works. A fuller list in French, with partial details of surviving manuscripts and a bibliography, is online at Alema. Translations. Cicero's letter to his brother on the duties of a governor. Philip presented this to his son Charles the Rash. Romuleon of Benevento da Romola, a history of ancient Rome, surviving in 6 copies. Like other works below, this addressed issues of the correct conduct of rulers of great interest to the inner court circle. Philip the Good's copy was scribed by Collard Mansion, who was shortly to become the first printer of books in French. VIAF Miracles de Saint-Josse, La Controverse de Noblesse, a translation of De Nobilitate by Buonaccorso de Montemagne, a precursor of Castiglione's Il Cortegiano, together with Le Débat d'honneur from the Italian of Giovanni Orispa, a version of Compratio Hannibali's, Scipione se Alexandri, Lucian's 12th Dialogue of the Dead. Both works survive in 14 manuscript copies, and were printed together in about 1475 by Collard Mansion in Bruges. Traité sur l'oraison dominicale, Miélot de l'Hémipetrus, a translation of the Specula Morium Anime Peccatrices. Les Quatrichoses Dernieras, translation of Cordial Quatu or Novissimorum, later printed in Bruges by William Caxton and Collard Mansion in about 1475. Caxton later printed an English translation from Miélot's French by Anthony Woodville, Earl Rivers, advised director pour faire le passage d'Ultra-mer, a traveller's guide to the Holy Land. La vie de Sainte Catherine d'Alexandrie, later printed. The only two illuminated copies known are Philip's and one illuminated by Simon Marmion for Margaret of York. Secret des Secrets, by the pseudo-Aristotle, supposedly advice given by Aristotle to Alexander the Great, originally a Middle Eastern text, later translated into Latin. Own works mostly compilations or adaptations relying heavily on other writers. Le Miroir de l'Humaine Salvation, one of 4 French versions of the Speculum Humani Salvationis. Miracles de Notre Dame, an important compilation, a version of the Epitaph by Christine de Pizan, augmented with material from the Genealogia Deorum Gentilium of Boccaccio. His commonplace workbook survives in the VIAF, containing draft translations and drawings and initials, as well as verses, including some written for court occasions. They are more historical than literary interest. There is a labyrinth design containing the letters of Miélot.